Milwaukee Police Department, and of course the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office. As you might expect, these people have limited time today. The cases don't stop, so we'll have about 15 minutes. Several speakers, starting with District Attorney Kent Lovern, will close out with Sheriff Ball and have a few people in between. And with that, I will, one other thing, a little bit of housekeeping. Verdict may have been read, but this case is not over. So you can ask your questions. Not all of them may be answered, but ask away and we'll do what we can. With that, District Attorney Lovern, please.
Thank you, James. And good morning to all of you. First and foremost, I want to express our deepest sympathy to the family and loved ones of Sade Robinson. They've incurred a devastating loss that obviously occurred in a horrific manner, and they've had to carry this loss in a very public way now for over 14 months. And we are hopeful that this verdict brings some amount of solace to them. I want to express gratitude to the jurors who served in this case. We obviously are gratified by their verdict, obviously, because it is a just outcome in this case. But we are equally grateful for their service over 2 weeks, for their attention to this matter. And let's remember, jury service is among the highest level of civic responsibility any of us can be asked to take on. Juries are relied upon in the American justice system more than any place else in the world, and this is where members of our community have their highest amount of authority as they consider and decide cases. So we're very grateful for the jurors who served in this matter. I'm obviously very grateful to the superb law enforcement investigation that took place in this case. It was led by the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, and that team led by Detective Joanne Donner. Incredible work done here. As you heard through this trial, this was a very complex matter that took place in an investigation that spanned the entire county, and so required a great deal of meticulous and dedicated work. The Milwaukee Police Department played a big role in this investigation as well. We're grateful for their efforts. Assistant Chief Nicole Davila is here today, and I also want to express gratitude to all of the other law enforcement officials at the state, local, and federal level who participated in this investigation. It is important to know law enforcement in this county works very well together. That doesn't happen every place. It happens here in Milwaukee County, and for that, all of us in this community can be grateful. And finally, I want to thank our trial team. You know, the best prosecutors have a sharp mind and a big heart, and Ian Vance Curzan exhibits both of those at the highest level. Everyone saw that on full display during this trial, but what most people did not see was the hundreds of hours Ian has given to this case over the past 14 months in preparation for what happened in the courtroom over these past 2 weeks. Thank you to Deputy District Attorney Megan Newport, who also assisted with this case. She's a leader in our office, on our executive team. She has had an exemplary career already, supervising dozens of people while managing a caseload of some of the most violent crimes in our county, and I appreciate her efforts here. And I also want to personally thank Sarah Martinez, our victim witness advocate. Sarah is one of many such advocates in our office who have the challenging but rewarding task of guiding hurting members of our community through a justice system that can be complex, confusing, and unkind. And as she always does, Sarah did an exemplary job in this case, and we are all grateful for her work. Many others in our office contributed to the success of this prosecution, as with all of the other investigative agencies here. We all know these cases, especially the complex ones like this one, require a team effort across the board. And I can tell you, I've been part of this community for many, many years, and I'm grateful for the cooperation that we constantly see day in and day out through all of our public safety partners, and this case was no exception. I'm grateful for everyone's work in this matter and for the outcome today. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Ian Vance Curzan.
Good morning, everybody. I'm kind of tired of talking, but I just want to repeat something Kent said, that this is, while we are satisfied with this verdict, our hearts go out to the family of Sade Robinson. This is a tragedy, and I'm just hopeful that this verdict can be a step towards healing for everybody that this has affected, particularly her family. I have to say that this investigation was extremely thorough, and the hours of work put into this by investigators from numerous agencies, the Sheriff's Office primarily, and the Milwaukee Police Department, as well as other local agencies, federal agencies, even one out-of-state agency. Everybody put together the case that you saw over the course of the past 2 weeks. It was an incredible effort by so many people, by so many dedicated members of the law enforcement community, and that's what you saw on display over the last 2 weeks. And the victim witness, Sarah, I can't thank you enough for the work you put in. You dedicated so much of your life to this case, and as the victim witness advocate staff in the district attorney's office really did that. I'm kind of at a loss for words here. It's been a long 2 weeks, but I just wanted to say those things, and yeah, and if there's any questions, or am I turning it over? Yes, George. Yes, Detective Donner in particular, she was the lead, and she was incredible. I owe her so much.
Well, it wouldn't have happened without his amazing presentation in court. But yes, like everyone said, my heart goes out to the family and her friends and really the community at large. Everyone's come together, and it's hard to take that step back as a law enforcement officer and not get that emotionally involved during the case. But I will admit that I did go back to my office after the verdict, and I had a good cry, because I finally got to have that emotion. It does affect us too. And as I said at one point on the stand, that as the lead investigator, this wasn't me. I just was orchestrating. I was directing people where to go and what to do, and sometimes I felt a little lost. But without, the rest of my team, every single detective we have worked on this. All of Milwaukee's homicide unit, many of their officers. We had the ATF, FBI, Cudahy, Waukegan. It really was a huge joint effort, and this would not have happened without all of us working together. So I'm looking forward to putting this past 14 months behind me. It's taken a long toll. It's been a very difficult road, but I was very pleased with today's verdict, and incredible to work with this prosecution team. It made it very easy. Ian was with me literally from day one, and that's why he knew this case inside and out. He was there every single step of the way. So, thank you.
Sure.
I can take some questions, and so can Detective
Donner first. Can you summarize how many hours you spent on this case the last 14 months? And what was the most complex or challenging piece of this investigation from your perspective?
So since these are the two people that assign me my cases, they can probably attest that I have not been assigned pretty much any case for the past 14 months. It has been this case. So whatever 40 plus hours a week has been on this case. I have lived and breathed it. Even on some of my off times, I would go down to Warnemont and I'd go up and down that beach, just helping, right? The most difficult part is not asking myself constantly, did I miss anything? Is there anything that I overlooked? Being hard on myself, I think, was actually really the hardest part on this case.
Ian, when that verdict came down today and it was guilty on all 4 counts, your first thought was what?
Just how thankful I am to have the team that I have. Megan, Sarah, others in my office, and then also just what I said before, that hoping that this can be a time for Sade's family to move on to some healing. Now having a verdict after all these months, those were the first things I thought about.
What do you think it says about the swiftness of this deliberation? It took less than an hour.
I think it says that the investigation was incredibly well done. I'm not a participant in that. I just try to tell the jury what the facts are and let the facts speak the truth. And I think that when a case is investigated the way this one was investigated, the truth just spoke for it. I mean, the evidence just spoke for itself. That's all I can really say about that, and I think the jury saw that. There really wasn't much I needed to say in my closing argument. I felt like just because of how much the jury had seen, they saw how thorough it was.
Ian, it seems that the presentation of your case that you and Megan did, you're trying to put together all these different pieces of evidence, all these different timelines, and make it consumable and understandable for a jury, especially when you're getting into very dry, technical evidence. How much time was spent on that, and how does that go towards what you think is verdict that was reached today?
I mean, there were, hours and hours of video that was poured through by many, many detectives, and that I've watched as well with them, and repeatedly watched that stuff. And the time put into that, all the videos, retrieving the videos, I mean, that's what defined the timeline and the routes that were taken and that sort of thing that allowed for a complete understanding of what happened throughout the day, the evening, and the early morning hours into the next day. There's countless hours spent reviewing video. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
there are 82 witnesses by our count that were called for your case. 68 members of law enforcement, 12 civilians, 2 non-law enforcement government workers, and Detective Donner, I think, our track had you taking the stand the most times of that. Have you ever called that many witnesses in a case, or remember calling that many witnesses in a case, and purpose of that, I'm guessing, to lock in and try and carry that timeline forward?
I've never called that many witnesses. I can't speak for Megan. I think she may have before. But no, I've never called that many witnesses, but that was necessary to lock in the timeline and be very clear. Because one of the things when you're dealing with a case that involves such a large geographic range and a long timeline, it's going to require a lot of people to help explain all of that, and that's what we had here.
Ian, there was a lot of evidence in this case, but what would you consider to be the key piece of evidence that helped you prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt?
I'm not sure I really want to comment on that. I think the evidence spoke for itself, and I think if you watched the trial, everybody who watched the complete trial got to a moment where I think it got to that point, at some point. But
Detective Donner, can you just talk about the complexity of this case, having to deal with agencies from across the county, even spilling into Illinois?
So initially, we ended up having daily briefings over at MPD, kind of get caught up on the aspects that they were working on, and then joining it up with what we were working on. Sorting out those tasks, thankfully, it was easier than I thought it would be. Just letting them know, like, hey, we need video from this area, and I didn't have to worry about knowing it's going to get done. Same with my guys, just, asking him to do unusual things like throw a pair of gloves off of a cliff. No one questioned it. They just went ahead and did it. So it was having that trust and that confidence, mostly in the other agencies, that's what made this a lot easier for me to deal with.
And can you give us some perspective? I mean, this case came with no murder weapon and the medical examiner not being able to determine how Sade Robinson actually died.
Right.
Have you ever worked a case like that, or can you just put it in perspective for us?
No, not at all. And that was increasingly frustrating, because that's where I went back to am I missing something? Am I overlooking something? I knew in my gut that Maxwell Anderson was guilty. So I needed to figure out, does this evidence show it? But yeah, it was very hard to overcome some of that. But in the end, it's what I had. So that's what we had to go with.
Given the fact that we have 2 more speakers, 2 more questions.
Ian, last August we learned that the search warrant was unsealed, that a confidential informant had talked about this, perhaps, that Anderson mentioned a month before. Any reason that wasn't brought up and discussed?
I don't want to comment on that.
Any concerns during the past 9 days? Any times that you were less confident maybe than?
When you have a team like we had here, and support, family support, colleague support like we had, I was feeling confident mostly the entire time.
One more?
Was the circumstantial evidence in this case more powerful than having some of that other physical evidence?
I think I'd just let the verdict speak to that.
Hi, Assistant Chief Nicole Waldner of the Milwaukee Police Department. I oversee the Criminal Investigation Bureau. I just wanted to thank my detectives, many of which are standing here, but it is just a fraction. If you watched any of the trial, you know how many people were involved in this. And as Detective Donner alluded to, it was continuous cooperation between our two agencies. In my time of 28 years working for Milwaukee Police, we've always worked with the sheriffs, but never ever has it been as seamless as it has this time. And the cooperation between the agencies and the hard work by both of them and the teamwork was amazing. And honestly, I feel like it's due to the dedication of Sheriff Ball and Chief Norman always working together, and it filters down. And without that leadership and saying, okay, do whatever you guys got to do to figure this out, it wouldn't have happened the way it did. And so I just really appreciate all the cooperation between, you know, sometimes it's hard to get a bunch of type A's and the personality, you know, type A personalities to work on something, but they all just took this case and nothing was more important than figuring it out. So I just wanted to publicly thank all of the detectives on both sides that worked on this case.
Is there anything that can be learned from this for the future? Any types of that cooperation or how a case like this might be, you know, like anything that can be gleaned from the last 14 months?
So we've always worked in cooperation, but you all know, being in Milwaukee, there has not been anything like this, right, since way back, right? So now we have a process, right? And I think it was the coordination between the two teams, and I feel like, my feeling is, this is how it's going to be. No matter what, if say something happens at the lakefront, this cooperation exists, and we're gonna do things together. Because honestly, with staffing, with crime, this is how it has to be for a community to have a law enforcement agencies that work well together. This is what it's going to be from now on.
Sure, Paul.
Good morning. First, I'd like to start by extending condolences to the Robinson family. But I also want to commend and thank all who participated in the investigation of the death of Ms. Robinson, as well as those who participated in the trial. As you know, this was not the typical homicide or death investigation that we would normally have. It was not packaged up in a bow and all of that. They literally, it was a puzzle that they had to piece together what happened, figure out what happened, and then present a case that was coherent to the jury. And so I'm proud of the work that was done by everyone that is involved in this case. But on a personal note, I just want to say I'm proud of the men and women of the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, but also everyone that participated in this trial. The result was the result that we thought was fair. It was a guilty verdict. And so, you know, I'm hoping that it would bring some semblance of peace to the family. And so as I wrap up, again, I want to, on behalf of the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, I want to extend the condolences not only to the family, but to the friends and to the community who have embraced the Robinson family. And, you know, may this be the beginning of healing. Thank you.
So I think with that, we'll conclude.